Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am your gracious host, Captain Frodo, and welcome to today's strange loops in these strange times. I'd like to start, like we often do, to talk about the constraints given to us by the pandemic, and was once again reminded of this. Of course, I have a bias because I'm already thinking these thoughts, but in LA there is a fella called Scott Neary, who is probably most famous to the performing community as the creator of Booby Trap, but he also writes a daily blog. And I need to emphasize that again, a daily blog. Every single day he writes a blog post. And it's, I've started reading it religiously. It's often just, a few words that brings up an interesting idea, like a thing to ponder for the day. It's a short read. You can find him at scott.fun. That's very good. Good email. No, it's not an email, it's an address. But anyway, he wrote there on this, he wrote on the 8th of August in a post called "The Entertainer is Always Right." And taking this a little bit out of context, but he says, the limitations are where the creativity starts. This mirrors what we've talked about, but this is the interesting thing where he says, the greatest moves in sports happen only because of rules. That's where the innovation and the excellence shows up. So we definitely need limitations, and the more deliberate and concrete these limitations are, the more fun the game. And this is very interesting. If we see the constraints put on the pandemic, almost like the constraints in a game in a clown workshop, or and you take these constraints and you see, what do we learn by looking at these? Because just the fact that we all understand the rules of a game, whether it's footy, or the Australian football, or soccer, or whatever game you're into, basketball, the fact that you know the games, when somebody does something extraordinary within it, everybody who watches understands how extraordinary it was because of the way that it pushed the limits, or stayed within the framework of this thing. So this is a way, again, to look at these constraints. And what have you been doing with these constraints? I mean, here in Norway, where I have arrived, school has just started again. There's a semblance of normality in that. My daughter haven't been to school since the middle of March, when it all closed down. So that's been very good. She went to some summer camp just when she arrived in Norway, but now school has started and learning has begun again, so that gives a semblance of normality. But I'm about to go away to do a gig, getting on planes again, wearing masks and carrying on, and the nervousness of that was pretty intense when we came here to Norway from America. And the recent flare of cases has made Denmark, in a city close to where I'm going to Aalborg, but there's a city in Aarhus where it's now gone into the red zone. Here in Europe they divide things into red, green and yellow, and I'm going to a yellow zone, but I'm still going to have to go into quarantine, and then I have another event, a gig here in Norway a couple of weeks afterwards. But basically it means that I come home, go into quarantine, go and do another couple of days in Oslo, but currently Oslo is also spiking. So quarantine again after that. So doing 10 days of work will be 30 days, including the quarantine in both ends. These are strange times, and the creative solutions that we need to work on. I've heard a lot of talk. A lot of people are trying to find ways to put their stuff online, and that is excellent, which of course I have done too. This podcast is most frequently found online. It's only really going live here in our shed in Norway. Very few people are actually present here. In fact, it is only me and you, while you're actually on the other side of the internet. Anyway, I was going to say some things about the lens of showmanship. We talk about this lens of showmanship, and in many ways this lens is a metaphorical lens. But what is a metaphor really? If I say that the world is a carnival, what does that mean? Because the world isn't the carnival. The carnival is not the world. And to understand something metaphorically, we need to keep two different realities in our minds at once. At the same time, we must keep two different things. We need to keep the things different, whilst at the same time seek how they importantly are the same. And the difference gets you outside of yourself, and the sameness brings it back and brings out something inner, a quality of sameness. Because the world is a carnival, and that is, it is and it isn't. But the difference gets you out of your normal point of view. It disrupts your view, and from outside ourselves we use the carnival as a frame or lens through which we can look back at the world and understand new things. What does the world look like now? What do we learn from the metaphor? What new things do we see from this new vantage point? Seeing the world through the carnival allows you to highlight and note other aspects of the world than you would normally notice. The carnival lens changes what you're looking for and what stands out to you. In a way, the lens of showmanship, the metaphorical lens, helps to restructure the world in a way that's salient or significant for us showfolk. Metaphor is dual reality, a kind of dialectic for our understanding of the world. So I think that's a good way to understand what this lens actually is. We've talked about it in an essay here a couple of episodes ago as well, but this idea of metaphor, bringing ourselves outside of ourselves to see the world anew and to see new things pop out, that's an important thing to do now. We need to turn that lens on ourselves as well as we reimagine ourselves. Yeah. And someone asked me about my sources for my show notes, and these show notes are not usually my primary sources, because when I write and speak, it's all coming a little bit more from the gut, and I don't always have all my sources immediately available online. If there's something in particular that you're after or interested in, you can of course ask me, because the show notes are more meant as a which I put underneath the episodes, the show notes, where you found them online. And they're meant as sort of springboards. Some of the links, or a few of the links, are to Wikipedia. And I don't know how you use Wikipedia, but I use it to get an idea of the scope of a topic, not the final source. Unless, of course, you're not interested, then you might not go and click on the link at all. But if you do, then it sparks some enthusiasm in you, then it lights your candle, then go for it. And there's probably something more to find on the internet. There's probably something on YouTube about it. And if you find something really resonates with you, then this is true not just for these, but just in general, in these times when bipartisanship and people are throwing things up on the internet and in their social feeds that they haven't checked the links of. I think it's important, if you find something that resonates with you, to find out how the rest of the world feels about it. If you love it and it becomes a brick in your construction of your inner building project of the world, try Googling around to find someone picking your argument apart. You might not agree with them, they might be wrong, but you might have fallen into a YouTube rabbit hole or into an intellectual or emotional echo chamber. So my sources are frequently just like one of those signposts you see in a comic book, where there's a bunch of arrows or arrow signs pointing in all sorts of directions. if you're interested in further resources, or any of you are, then just, of my specific resources or whatever, then drop me a line. I'm Captain Frodo on Facebook, and my mail is thewayoftheshowman@gmail.com. If there's interests out there, I will go there for sure. Now, my good friend Shep Huntly has written another poem. It's a while ago since he wrote it. It's another great example of the transformations brought on by the pandemic. And this poem describes, in a way, the experience of the Australian subculture of circus and everything, and the Garden of Unearthly Delights, which we talked about in episode 2, the second episode about the Mythopoetic Carnival. And it's a sad little Aussie poem for a broken subculture. It goes like this. The fairy floss machine is collecting dust in the shed. We were going to Adelaide, but we're staying home instead. We used to go to festivals, but festivals are dead, and we ain't gonna play no more. It used to be a playground of Ferris wheels and lights, recycled late-night game shows, and other strange delights. Showgirls put on makeup at the back of tiny tents. Some guys plays accordion while acrobats get bent. Tommy's selling donuts. Shane has got the freaks. It's licensed to print money for 6 amazing weeks. The Fringe Club down off Hindley Street stayed open till 5 a.m. Heady times like that, I fear to say, will never come again. Never will we get to play that special dancing game, and never will we have to walk the Rundle Walk of Shame. 'Cause festivals are dead now. Festivals are no more. Not even Stratum Fret can change it, and that's the fucking score. So we're gonna sell the props and the minivan, gonna sell everything and get back what we can. Celebration has been outlawed. The memo has been sent. The festival is over. The Reprobates Lament. And isn't that just too sweet and too sad? Nostalgic for a time so recently past. It's amazing. But with this taken away from us, where are we going to go? Because the way of the showman, it unfolds with each step that we take, and only by not taking the next step does it stop. So keep walking. Take time to rest, of course. Take time to sit down and contemplate, but move forwards. Because any good artist, or at least it's a thing that's been said, it's not any good artist, but a lot of the greatest artists are said to be ahead of their time, 50 to 100 years ahead of their time, and they described what they saw lying beyond the horizon. They saw into the future world. And I think that artists of whatever time, and this particular time, have to imagine ourselves into and then create for this new world, even though all the evidence has not come in. We must rely on embracing the abilities of our imagination to intuit and describe what is yet just a germinating seed in the present, but it might become something that flowers only after we have written the lines of the poem, or painted the canvas, or erected the canvas roof of our tent and leaving the walls down and presenting something inside it. These are strange times. They sure are. But we will prevail. And with that, that's all that needs to be said, I think. And it's time to move into the world of ideas. Strange loops. Today we're going to start with a couple of quotes that will set the tone for the frame of mind that could be beneficial to get into this essay of today. The first is from Philip K. Dick, the science fiction author. It's from his book Valis, and there he says, "The symbols of the divine initially show up in the trash stratum." And then we'll go on to Mircea Eliade, who we're going to talk more about later. And he says, "Anything man has ever handled, felt, or come in contact with or loved can become a hierophany." And a hierophany is something that Mircea Eliade talks a lot about. It is a manifestation of the sacred. And he says anything ever handled, felt, or come in contact with can become a hierophany, can become something that is a manifestation of the sacred. This, of course, also loops us back to the end of the last episode, where we talk about the carnival as a mirroring of the human soul. Now, we're going to take a little start here with looking at lowbrow, which is a personal quirk of mine, lowbrow that flies high. Because I love all kinds of art which elevates things which at first appears shallow, low, dirty and cheap or broken or disturbing. I love the tension that comes from things which at first seems contradictory. I've talked about this earlier, how being funny whilst doing sword swallowing or whilst performing the contortions and dislocations that I do has worked very well for me as an artist. But it's also like the poetry of Charles Bukowski, which conjures beauty and meaning from whores and drunks and fights and skid row life in L.A. Bukowski living in flop houses, getting drunk, but then going home and listening to Beethoven on his battery-powered radio and typing poetry whilst smoking cigars and dreaming beautifully about the dirty contents of the lower side of reality. I love the weird. I love works of art that straddles the beautiful and the bizarre. I love Robert Anton Wilson, Terence McKenna and Philip K. Dick. I love Tolkien and Narnia, and I love the never-ending story. I love science fiction. Just how awesome is Ted Chiang? If you don't know him, check out his stories. One of them was made into a movie called The Arrival, and that was also excellent. And I also love Donald Duck comics drawn by the great masters Karl Barks and Don Rosa. I love horror movies and the fantastically weird fiction of John Langan, Brian Evenson, and the godfather of the weird, H.P. Lovecraft, and his old ones, deep ones, and old gods. I also love the carnival arts. First and foremost is the showman I am, and I love the circus, and I love showmanship. And all of this is lowbrow, popular entertainment. But there is so much to find, so much inspiration, and there is such a delightful blur of real and imagination. It expresses ideas in such interesting ways. But these ways are very often confused by so many as being shallow or unimportant because of the way that they're expressed. I was listening to a podcast the other day called Good Point, which was recommended to me by my friend Jay Gilligan, and there's a great interview with Jay Gilligan on a different podcast, The Hideaway Circus, which again is a brilliant podcast. I'll post a link to this. But anyways, one of the guys in the Good Point podcast, Raphael Rosenthal, he said that there is this idea in conceptual art that visual enjoyment is kind of suspicious. And I find this a very interesting and arresting idea and proposition. In conceptual art, you always have a meaning besides the visual layer. And the visual layer is just a coating of the idea, and the idea is what you want the viewer to get. So, by making the visual look miserable, there is no distracting enjoyment that will get in the way of the idea. In this way, Raphael said, conceptual artworks are like eggs, boring and white on the outside, but nourishing and colorful on the inside. I thought that was nice. And I would say that the whole game with conceptual art is flavored with suspicion, not just suspicion of beauty, but from the point of view of the viewer or me, the suspicion is whether the idea or the concept in the artwork is that the work that because I have to put work into grasping it, and is this central idea going to be revelatory and exciting enough for me to bother discovering it? And if I do come up with some revelatory gold in my interaction with the piece, if I manage to turn the potential shitty conceptual artwork into experiential gold, then I reckon I would feel like the gold came as much from me as from the artwork. And the truth and the ideas are found along the midway between the art and the viewer. And this is exactly what a conceptual artwork is, and it is what it's supposed to do. It's a trigger for a process, an interactive activity inside you. It is an irritant, a grain of sand that can grow into a pearl in the pain and struggle of your mind to grasp the whatever object it is that you're looking at. And what's sure is that a bad conceptual work makes you feel the idea isn't worth the effort. And if it fails to capture your attention, you will not give it the time or the headspace. But a good one spurs you on and makes you keep searching. This is all aligning with the way that I experience the lowbrow arts that we talked about before, and the way that they can be experienced by the general public. The fact that they're a part of what's called popular entertainment, it makes them potentially powerful delivery tools. If you can get important or transformative ideas into the lowbrow format or popular entertainment, then you have an enormous potential. When the crowds come expecting just entertainment and good times, and get that, but that there is something more beneath it all, baked into the good times that makes them think, a little idea, a complex set of emotions, an irritant that can grow into a pearl, then you are on the way towards illuminated showmanship. There's also something interesting about the broken expectation. I was once described in a review as hysterically funny and surprisingly moving, which made me feel pretty good about myself. I like this dichotomy. I think we talked about this in the Clown Truth episode. I think the reward for digging through the dirt of popular entertainment and finding a diamond has a very particular feeling of participatory revelation, that you're taking part in the discovery, in the same way that we talked about finding gold in shitty conceptual art. You feel like you were part of the discovery. You dug in, you got your hands dirty, but it was worth it because you found a treasure. Of course, not everything base, low, vile, and dirty has the capacity to capture my attention or portray something beautiful, but there is something good about dirt. When something is dirty, most often we think of it as it's not nice, it's not valuable, we look down on it. But there are different kinds of dirt. Some dirt rightly is noxious and toxic and smelly, but we also call soil dirt. And soil is the very source of practically all plant life. Soil makes life possible not just for plants. From soil, tree grows and go on to produce the oxygen we need to breathe and live. Soil is dirty, but it is also a source of life. It is a duality and not a dichotomy. It's two sides of a coin. Now let's look at another duality, specifically human duality of waking and sleeping consciousness. Let's look into the carnival of dreams. See where that takes us. The carnival is a reflection of the human soul, in the same way that dreams are a reflection of our waking life. There grows no roses in the sawdust of the circus. It's not flowers or plants that grows from the fertile soil of the mythopoetic carnival, for the carnival is not a biological process, but a human cultural phenomenon. What grows along the midway is human experiences. The carnival is like its dark sibling, the night, a place for dreams, unlike the night, where dreams gets thrust upon us by our mind's unconscious workings. The carnival is, or can be, a place of conscious dreaming, a waking dream, a meeting of yourself. In this sense, the mythopoetic midway can be understood as a carnival of dreams. In many ways, the carnival of dreams could be a better description or name for the mythopoetic carnival, since mythopoetic is a rather obscure word. My fondness for all that is lying in the gutter, but looking up towards the stars, could make people say that I'm a dreamer. But judging by the response to this podcast and my performances, I'm not the only one. I have been practicing what I just preached as planting seeds or irritants in my work as a showman performer for a long time. In my mind, the carnival of dreams is a place where dreams are real things, where you can participate and thus make things real. And I have been attempting to realize this carnival's dream potential quite literally by urging spectators to follow their dreams. And this was my central slogan for 12 years of my career, as I delivered the closing speech of La Clique and La Soirée from the top of my stack of cans. Now, let's go midway dream diving and take a little closer look at dreams. Sleep and dreams are important, for health and well-being, and sleep plays an important role in regulating our metabolism, blood pressure, brain function, and other aspects of our health. But it's been harder for researchers to pin down and explain the role of dreams. Dreaming. We all do it, but researchers don't entirely agree on their function. Dreams are usually autobiographical thoughts based on your recent activities, conversations, or other issues in your life, and there seems to be a strong link between dreams, memory, and learning. Your brain seems to process the events of the day, solidifying your experiences, both ideas you have learned and interacted with, and activities and skills you've been doing. So, although it is hard to know how much of these functions are driven by dreams, as apart from the process of sleeping, what we do in the night when we're asleep is an important part of human health, both physical and mental health. Mental help, it's like a mental help for your mental health. Going one step further, does dreams mean anything? And if so, what? Are they just chaotic electrical discharges and random flashes of memories jittering through our unconscious brains, or are at least some of them glimpses into a greater collective unconscious? There certainly seems to be a whole lot of artists of all different kinds who credit their dreams as sources for some of their most creative work, like William Blake and Salvador Dali, and they're just some famous examples. Their works seems to speak to a whole lot of people, so something from dreams can certainly find resonance in the general public. Arguments are made for each of these positions of meaning versus meaninglessness of dreams. Sigmund Freud, though, firmly believed dreams were meaningful and important. In 1899 he wrote an influential book called The Interpretation of Dreams, where he also introduced his theory of the unconscious. And Freud thought of and call dreams the royal road into the unconscious. Freud and throngs of therapists have done a lot of great healing through dream work, even if you don't agree with Freud's theories, which is fair enough since he's got many things incredibly wrong, like his thoughts on the female orgasm, but that's for another time. But the interpretation of dreams remains a valuable contribution to understanding dreams as meaning-bearing things or processes. In dreams and the nature of the mythopoetic or carnival of dreams, I think we have found another strange loop. We talked about strange loops in some of the other episodes, but we're talking about it today. And say we visit a real-world carnival and walking down it, getting on rides and feeling the thrill of knocking down tin cans with balls in a game of skill or chance. It is simultaneously a stroll through the realm of desires, thoughts and emotions particular to human beings. It's a journey of interaction with our deeper aspects, since as we looked at in the last episodes, the attractions reflect ourselves. We are in a sense participating in a playground exploratorium of the soul. And then, when the real world carnival closes and we go home and go to bed, in our sleep, images and experiences from the real world carnival, which is already a mirror of our soul, is thrown up on the silver screen of our sleeping mind as dreams. And in the comfort of our own bed, we once again find ourselves at the carnival, the literal carnival of dreams, and we're cavorting down our own mental midway. It's a story within a story, and a dream within a dream. It then does not take much imagination to imagine the contents of all dreams, whether we are flying high above the clouds, sailing in a boat through a gorgeous forest, or arriving at work with no pants on. All these dream images could be thought of as carnivalesque, or perhaps the realm of dreams with all its crazy and bizarre events can rewardingly be thought of in its entirety as the realm of the mythopoetic carnival. The carnival of dreams might not ever have existed as a place you can visit in the real world, but perhaps it is a place you can visit, or that you are visiting, in your dreams every night. In dreams we relive and reconnect to our biographical real life. Feelings are strengthened, and when we are facing difficult decisions, we can always benefit from sleeping on it. Sleep, perchance, dream, to see what we learn. An interesting side note is that the experiences we let influence us does not have to be yours or real in any normal sense of the word. Take an emotion like nostalgia. I use it in my work often. This is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or a place, with a happy personal association. But recent research into nostalgia shows that you absolutely can be nostalgic. You can feel strongly connected to places that you never lived or even visited. Nostalgia does not need real memories. An imagined past works as well. Perhaps the carnival you visited as a child was as dirty and low as the one described by Bikini Kill in episode 9. Yet, as a human being, in the alchemy of memory and time, of space and experience, there's a transformation of the real experience into a new and more symbolically potent reality, which lifts the lowly up into a transfiguration, a complete change of form or appearance into a more beautiful or spiritual state, something more elevated and illuminating. The carnival of dreams is not a real place, yet when you visit it in your heart or imagination, it is more real than reality itself. And this takes us to the carnival as a transcendent experience. The carnival experience is a sphere that makes transcendent experience possible. It can facilitate a higher state of consciousness, related to dreaming, as we've just seen, related to mystical experiences and religious experiences, and to drug experiences. It's a place you can visit, which might blow your mind in a way you can't explain rationally. Yet, even if the telling of the experience doesn't make sense, the experience can be undeniable in its importance to you. The carnival, with its strange loop of soul reflections reappearing in dreams, can be like a psychedelic trip brought on by a more bodily kind of ecstasy. It's a kaleidoscope of colors and strange shapes. It's a place with emotional architecture of fun, akin to a movie set from a German expressionist film like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. High sugar intake, crazy stomach-churning rides, roller coasters with loop-de-loops, sideshow fire breathers, and strong women donning impressive beards, ripping telephone directories in half, two-headed freaks, three-breasted strange girls, and regular hot burlesque queens sending your blood boiling, all with the pumping repetitive beats of music amplified by tinny loudspeakers through the roars of ecstatic revelers on bumper cars and teenagers stealing French kisses behind a popsicle stand. As well as alcohol, marijuana, and any other kinds of mind-altering substances. All these events are to be found in a similar territory to the ones explored by shamans with their tools and techniques of ecstasy. Shamans wield powerful psychological technologies for creating altered states of consciousness, drums, chanting, shaking, fasting, or spinning round and round, all aspects of the carnival. Stirred and excited in the carnival space, the chance is ripe for you to arrive at trans-rational experiences. Dizzy, high, shaken and stirred and deliriously aroused, you might find yourself in a state which makes sense on another level than normal reality. Yet in this reality you can remain in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, and transgressive behaviors without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. Normally, if things doesn't make sense, we ignore them. We shake them off as misunderstandings or mistakes. Like if someone was to describe something that happened to them but then claimed it didn't happen at a particular time or place. Where were you when you were robbed? I was nowhere in particular. When was it? It didn't happen at a time. Now, this doesn't make any sense. Yet in altered states of consciousness, during strange carnival experiences, you can fall outside of normal time and space. The non-rational experience might become immensely important. Flashes of insights and connections made in an altered space, nested inside distorted time, and ideas too strange to express reasonably can be overwhelmingly powerful to you, who lived it, felt it, and experienced it. Very often it can be powerful enough to change your life. The strange glimpses and realizations alters something in the way that you interact with the world from then on. Your lens is changed, swapped, or adjusted, so that what jumps out as relevant to you from all around you in the world is different from before. It's like you have discovered a new color, a color out of space, and suddenly you see this color everywhere. You understand that it always was present in the world. You experience your altered state of consciousness didn't create this color, but it explosively is now brought to your attention. Once seen, it can't be unseen. And although the carnival experience isn't quite as reliable, powerful, or all-encompassing as an LSD or mushroom-induced psychedelic experience, the psychologically destabilizing effects of the full spectrum of the carnival experience can combine to induce altered states of consciousness. And an interesting fact about altered states of consciousness of all kinds is that even though it might not make any rational sense, it can be so powerful that it reorganizes your life. We mentioned it before, but this is not just something that's anecdotal, that some hippie on acid realized that he was God and then started his own cult. There's some very interesting research on this. Johns Hopkins researchers did a study into both drug-induced and non-drug-induced experiences of the trans-rational, that they call these experiences God experiences or ultimate experiences, to not offend any atheists. And out of the 4,285 people who participated in the survey, a total of 3,476 people responded to the psychedelic survey and 809 responded to the non-drug survey. A lot of people have these experiences. And one of the key findings was that as many as 75% of the participants rated these experiences as among the most meaningful and spiritually significant of their lifetime. And both groups, drug and non-drug induced, attributed positive changes in life, like satisfaction, purpose, and meaning, as direct results of having had this experience. And this is amazing. These experiences, which are so outside of the ordinary, when they resonate, become so momentous that they can make a person reevaluate their entire existence because of it, sometimes in the face of rationality. And this is the power of the realm of the carnival of dreams. It's a fair ground where even if you're ripped off, confused and scared, there are positive, meaningful lessons to be learned. And it is interesting the power that the carnival, or even in my own limited experience, it has to make people change their minds about the world around them and their role in it. I have, as a sort of a motivational speaker with my speech of Follow Your Dreams, had many emails and conversations of people who have come back to the show a year later and said, I have done these and these changes in my life, and I attributed them to you. So this is a real thing. So with this in mind, a real transcendent experience, and with it a real transformative experience, I think that the carnival experience can be seen as a kind of sacred spectacle. When you live in a town and one morning you wake up to find a lavishly displayed carnival with rides and a big top and endless attractions, your whole world might be turned upside down. For the carnival is an invitation, a place ripe for transgression, where the rules of everyday life become malleable and fluid. The flings and escapades and fun had there is almost like a different kind of reality, something that's been plunked down and quickly erected, an whole other world. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, they say. Well, I happened in Vegas, but I didn't end up staying. But what happens at the carnival stays at the carnival. When they pack down their attractions and load them onto their trucks, the transgressions are packed away amongst the canvas and carousel horses, as if, when you pay the admission and step past the entrance gate, the carnival portal of initiation, you enter a wholly other mode of being, stepping from the profane reality of every day into what philosopher and historian of religion, Mircea Eliade, calls the arena of the sacred. Human beings does not experience space and time as homogeneous. They're not always the same. I mean, different times feels different. Friday's different from Monday, and the last few weeks of December feels different than the end of January. And the hours leading up to hearing the jury's verdict for someone on trial can feel all kinds of distorted, and a crowd in the grip of a master showman find their experiences of time and space warped by the gravity of the showman. Not every place is the same. Different rules apply in different arenas, and we behave different in churches than at supermarkets. The carnival has in its fabric a potential for sacredness. And in his book, The Sacred and the Profane, Mircea Eliade writes, on the most archaic levels of culture, this possibility of transcendence is expressed by various images of an opening. Here, in the sacred enclosure, communication with the gods is made possible. Hence, there must be a door to the world above, by which the gods can descend to earth and man can symbolically ascend to heaven. And at the carnival, once you walk through the portal of initiation, the opening, and you have the right change, and I like the double meaning of this, having the right or having the exact change, as meaning both in your pocket as cash, but also in your heart. One change, you get to get through the gate, and the other gate is to gain full advantage of the experience beyond the gate. If you are in possession of the sacrificial $16, which Bikini Kill described, you pay your tithes, you make your sacrifice, and when you enter with the right anticipatory change in your heart, you can ascend or descend, not just in the metaphorical ways described by Eliade. You can pay the price, get the ticket, and take the rides all the way to heaven or all the way to hell. It seems every which way we look at the mythopoetic carnival, there are strange loops of mirroring. If we think of the ways we have explored the carnival together in these last episodes through dream and waking and as a process and not a thing, as shaped by evolution and analogous to life, we can see them all reflecting into each other. They are all so similar that they form parallel mirrors, which creates the effect of an infinity mirror. You know, how when you put two mirrors up and they reflect each other, it creates this infinite of repeating depth where you can look into them. And in these mirrors, strings of yellow carnival lights seem to guide the way into the abyss, where they fuse world, soul, carnival, and life. And when you look into them, you see endlessly deep and strange reality tunnels, inside which everything blends together, washing away any crisp delineation between them. The more you look, the more you get the feeling that this exact delineation might not be so important. Life is a process and not a thing. It is not easily separated from its environment. In fact, separating anything out of the system in which it exists and belongs makes it lose its meaning and its place in the world. Studied alone, anything seems detached and meaningless. Only seen as a whole can we again begin to understand it, again make it meaningful. In the infinity mirror, the carnival becomes indistinguishable from life, both inner and outer. And this entire exploration over the last episodes has been about connecting us showfolk more deeply into the fabric of reality. And by now, I think we are beginning to see how deep these connections actually go. All right, another episode comes to an end, and I would like to thank you for your time and attention. And this podcast project is going very well. I am very excited. It's been sort of intense in the last few weeks, where I've reached a point where I'm writing a new essay, writing down all the ideas and that every week, and then recording it, and then having real life going on. We're off the script here now. There'll probably be another couple of episodes before we get a special episode as the final episode. I'm thinking of doing something different for the final episode, so a lot of exciting things happening in my mind. I hope you'll like it as it comes out of it. And if you would like to do something to help out, it would be excellent if you could give me a review, click 5 stars, or most of all, it would be helpful if you could share it on social media, share it to your friends. There might be people in your network that might be interested in these thoughts. I hope so. and maybe some of them could find it by a link shared by you. I have said all I need to say, so all that's left to be said is take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you all along the way.